talking with Shelley this morning, and she mentioned the idea of waiting. And waiting is always an interesting subject for me. I know there's a great scene in the movie. I use Matrix a lot as a kind of an example of enlightenment in a great story. But Neo is going into the Oracle for the first time, and he's supposed to be told that he's the one. He's the one. And she kind of checks him out and kind of does this and feels him, and he's like, okay, are you gonna tell me if I'm the one or not? And she's like, you know what I'm gonna say. And he says, I'm not the one. Sorry, kid. I don't know what you're waiting for. You got the gift. You got the gift, but I don't know what you're waiting for. And in his mind, all he heard was, he's not the one. But he didn't really hear, he's got the gift. And when it comes to the idea of waiting, especially in this place where we're trying to connect in presence, in the now, less inner chatter, there's something really beautiful about kind of being told or realized that you do have something in you, and yet there's a waiting going on. I remember after I had my awakening, the first thing that happened was I stopped waiting in presence. I wasn't looking to get into some place, a better place. And I tell you, when you stop waiting, a lot of things come in all at the same time. The moment you stop waiting, like the intelligence of the universe and everything just comes at you at a lightning speed, and it's immense. Because waiting is kind of this doorway between me and the thing I'm trying to get. Me, this thinking between, and then presence, or quiet mind. And it's usually the thinking, seems like I get in the way of this. You have the gift, but you're waiting. It's funny. It actually sounds funny that we're like waiting to be present. It just sounds funny. Like presence is here. How could we wait? Because it's already here. How can we wait for something that's here? Right? It's like Neo. He already had it in him, that presence, that it already, but he was still waiting for something to arise. And presence, really, at the most simplest level, is here. There's nothing to do. That's the beauty of it. Although we sit and practice to get deeper into presence, but even just being aware that we're walking around in presence, that there's all this stuff around us, but the underlying to everything is this kind of this deep connection in presence. Presence, you look at a tree and there's presence. You look at the street, and the street is very present. When you walk on the sidewalk's very, very present. And so there's reminders like, hey, all around me is screaming presence. And we want presence, and yet it's all around us. It's like we have it right here, and then we want to get it. I think that's the hard, I mean, to me, that seems to be the hardest part, because it always feels like we have to really work at to get something. Like it's a lot of work to get something in this world. It takes a lot of work to get a nice house, a lot of work to get a car, a lot of work to, so we're just used to working at something to get something. But in presence, it's the opposite of that. It's not trying to get something and have to do a lot of work to get something. It's already here. It's already been built for us right now. And every moment, even if I look at anything, this computer, and it's, my God, this thing is very present. It's here. Okay, present. Everything's around me is present. I don't have to work. This thing around me, I don't have to work about trying to get present with everything, because it's already here, and we're already here. But I think it is a difficult thing for the mind to let something like that go without work. It doesn't feel like we've earned it. We haven't earned presence. We haven't earned the connection to be really here. Buddha was just intensely present. And in that intense presence, things come in, because you're just a vehicle to allow everything to come into that. And when you get in that place, you are the Buddha too. The Buddha is no different than you and I in presence. He just realized the presence was here and there was nothing to do other than get out of the way and let it come in. But it's difficult, and we're always trying to get something that takes work. So we feel like we have to get in the way to get things done. And if we stay in that mindset constantly, then this thing that's all around us, this presence that's all around us, doesn't get in. It can't get in until there's a letting go, until there's a realization that, I am the one. I mean, I realize I'm the one to be in this presence. The Buddha and me, or you, same being, just realizing nothing to do in presence, just be. And that really is kind of the work, for some level, is letting go, right? So that you're meditating and doing this work to let go of ourselves so that we can feel more presence. But if you go the opposite direction and go into everything around you that's present, that can also get you there, and sometimes much quicker, actually, because it's all around. All you have to do is look and see, wow, there's presence, and everything in here is really like super present. Okay, I'm gonna just let myself kind of connect to all this. But presence is not a thing to do, which is so fantastic to me, that presence is not a thing to do. My God, thank you so much, presence. I don't have to do so much work here, because everywhere else is a lot of work to exist in this body and everything in this life, and is immense amount of work. And this other thing that's right here all the time is not work, and it's like it's free. It seems too easy. Seems too simple, too easy. But anyone who has performed or connected in that place of where there's a flow and there's a feeling of non-doing, of not doing something, and yet the doing's arising, like we connect with that. We understand that. We see examples of that in people. We might be watching a game and see that. Might be seeing this painting and seeing that brilliance. And the painter says, I really didn't do anything. I just was there, but I didn't really do. Beethoven talked about that. This kind of transmitting this thing that he was just kind of the one doing this this part of it, but he wasn't really doing the writing, the connecting. And the more you feel that way, the more you start to notice that presence isn't doing. And then if you're in presence completely, that's when you feel, no matter and thing, then you're doing something. Let's say you're doing something, whatever it is, but then you roll into this presence, it removes that mental doing. And then now it starts to becoming more connected to what you're in with the thing that you're interacting with. But now you're interacting at a higher level, at presence. And then the intelligence of presence, and then the doing kind of collapsed into this other place. Some people call it nirvana, bliss, joy, love. There's a lot of words, but you know when you're connected here. And it's just know that presence is not a thing. It's not a thing. It holds the things, but it's not a thing itself. That's why there's no doing in presence, because it's not a thing to do. Everything else that you do inside of presence, there is some doing, but once you connect in this presence, again, there's a sense of this joy of just being. It kind of does move from doing into being, a being place. And then the being connects with presence, and then the doing that you're doing kind of all they just all work together in a beautiful harmony. It's a very sweet place. So presence is here. And the Buddha, and when Neo realized that he was the one, and just like that, it's because he kind of let go and saw the presence of everything. And in that presence, that's when you get the realizations of who you are, your essence, your own knowing, your own Buddha, your own Neo. So next time I'll repeat, next time, which is now, you let the feeling of presence just take you over. And if you can't remember what presence is, just look at something. And you can just look at that until you see the presence in the thing you're looking at, in the whatever you're looking at. And you'll start to notice it has immense presence to it. Your animals have presence. I mean, it's everywhere. And then you realize there's really nothing to do other than your just awareness of it, which is really beautiful. So it's already built for us. Everything's here. The universe has done all the heavy lifting. We get to enjoy it. And we call it presence or enlightenment or whatever. But you just have a sense when you're connected and you're not doing. And things still happen. So thank you so much for being here today. I felt everybody. I love everybody. What I noticed was I was looking, I look at each person, I said each person, and then, I would look right at, like I'm looking at Bruce right now, but then I would bring that into looking straight into you. I'm still looking at you, even though I'm not seeing your eyes, but I'm feeling this other thing that comes that you're like emanating out to me beyond just the eyes. It's a very, really, it's hard to explain, but it's like a tractor beam. It's really intense. So that was kind of what I was doing with you, a non-doing, so to speak. It can be really very, very subtle. Like the example I gave, he didn't even know he was waiting, right? Like Neo he didn't have any idea that he was actually waiting to realize he was the one. And that's the challenging part, is not realizing that you're waiting. It could be as simple as you have this connection to and you're just here, but you want a little, maybe one more spiritual book to get you over the top. And you're thinking you need more information, and yet in this place, it's not really information based. It's a letting go inside of yourself. And so there's a waiting process, because you can do that I did that for a long time. Like, okay, this this next book is going to do it for me. And even though I had this deep knowing that there was something I knew I was missing, and maybe I was looking for that through the books, but I didn't let myself go into myself deeply enough. I kept kind of like one step. I put myself out to somewhere else. I left this and kind of went out there to try to find the answers. But there was this knowing that I wasn't really going into deeply. And if have a sense of that, and you don't go into it, and you keep going out looking for the answers, then you will, that's a waiting process. But it's subtle. Sometimes you just won't even realize you're waiting, and all of a sudden, oh, I'm waiting. Wow, I have been waiting. That's a good point. That's right. There's this whole thing about, I'm not the Buddha, or I'm not this, or I'm not that, because I'm just not. And yet we have these experiences that kind of tell us that we have something in us that is clearly in that space, but we don't think we haven't earned it. That's part of it. We haven't quite earned it. So maybe we have to do, 10 more years of work before we kind of earn it. But that already throws you into a kind of a waiting place. So when you connect in these spaces and you feel yourself, it's like you're allowing yourself to go into it. And if you fully start to go into that, you start to realize things that you have these pieces in your life. And that just because you're, quote unquote, haven't maybe done a lot of work. I mean, I did work, but I didn't do a lot of work. I didn't have a teacher and stuff like that. So I didn't have anything formal in this way. But there's a place where if you keep letting these things get in the way, and you don't sit and feel yourself and go into yourself with presence. I'm not saying just go into yourself by yourself. You have presence and the intelligence of all this to help you come in. And now you're connecting more to a direct connection with yourself. And so it's a much faster way than kind of waiting for something. And you kind of know it. Like, you can't fully go there yet until one more thing. And then I think I can do it. But you're kind of telling yourself that a little bit. If you listened enough, you would hear that in you. And I think that's important to what you said. It was, you can realize that you actually are. That might be enough to keep you here in this presence place. After I had the awakening, I went to the Zen center, and we're sitting, and someone was kind of sitting next to us, and they start kind of talking in the meditation, just said whispering. And I remember the other person kind of few things over, kind of looked at her and said, "Shh, I'm trying to be quiet in presence." And it kind of, that little sound threw her out, right? Like, I like the real world. I started training people in a gym with lots of noise and lots of, stereos blooming and, blaring all over the place, and people dropping weights, and like, oh my God, if you can get present there, you're good. It's like, if you can do it in New York, you can do it anywhere. If you can do that in that noise level and still be in that present space, I like that kind of, that kind of thing. So it's an interesting place to, one level, keep this super quiet space. And at a lower level, you're trying to train yourself to be present out in the world as well. And so there's an interesting mix of, you bring some of this into this, And then when you go out there, you have a better feel that you can kind of do this with, sometimes there's something that comes out, in different places, especially when we're in our own homes. It's different because now it's like I have no control over anyone's house. Everyone has different, could be the phone rings, could the dog walk by. It's a lot of things that now in this space, you're actually having a lot, I think probably more distraction, some level than you would like being here. And that in of itself is kind of a challenging process to do, but that's where it strengthens your presence muscle. The presence muscle is what is really, you want to test it out in the world. That's kind of the idea. Like we're here in a very quiet place, and then, okay, let me see if I can take one foot outside and keep in this presence before the world with all this noise tries to take me out of it. Thank you all for coming today and for being, and I hope that you have a non-waiting day, and I'm not going to wait any longer for my guy.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. I love you guys.